Chapter 6 of When Woman Proposes by Anne Warner. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Jen Broda. Chapter 6 The Bird Flutters About a Bit. "Catherine," said Natalie to her friend one afternoon a fortnight later, "I wish that you would sit somewhere else this evening, somewhere a little further off than it is possible for you to be, if you are in the same room." "Do you think that that is wise?" Mrs. Dupre asked gently. "I don't know that it is wise, but I wish that you would do it just the same." "I will do it if you ask me, of course." "I am getting so used to being conventional now that I stay conventional without any thinking. And then, too, it would be so nice to talk with him alone just once before he goes. I am continually starting to say things and then being obliged to stop because I remember that you are there." "Dear me," said Mrs. Dupre, sincere sympathy flooding her tone. "And that makes me wonder if you don't affect him in the same way, perhaps." "That would be sad," the friend admitted. "There are so many important things which I want to tell him and which I want him to tell me," Natalie continued, frowning in a most businesslike manner. "And it would be awfully nice if we could be alone while we were doing it." "Very well, dear," said Mrs. Dupre. "I will leave you alone tonight. After all, whatever happens is your own affair." "Nothing is going to happen tonight," said Natalie. "Things will happen later." Mrs. Dupre had so little doubt on that score that she did not trouble to make any reply, contenting herself with watching her friend's restlessness move here and there. "Catherine, shouldn't you think that all these days and days would have made him feel more informal?" The question came suddenly as the speaker finally paused at the window with her back to the room. "Does he seem formal to you?" "Yes, he seems very formal." "Perhaps he is that kind of a man." "No, it isn't that. It is as if he were always trying to do right when he doesn't want to." Mrs. Dupre felt some apprehension over the keenness of intuition displayed in this speech. "Surely you would not wish him otherwise in that respect, Natalie." "I don't know. I can't quite puzzle it out. Just as I think that we are going to be very happy, something seems to come into his head that makes him act strangely. It seems as if it is perhaps going to take a long time to make it all come out right." She laid her cheek against the heavy curtain fold and waited a little. Then, "Catherine." "Yes, dear." "You know how he keeps saying that he is too old to marry." "Yes, dear." "Do you think he says it to keep me remembering it, or to keep himself remembering it?" Again, Mrs. Dupre felt startled, this time beyond all possibility of making an answer. Natalie waited a little and then continued. "I don't know very much about men, I know, but even if he does seem to be such a very formal kind, I am quite sure that he will like you to stay away once just as much as I shall. Quite sure." As to that, also, the friend had not the slightest doubt. "I shall not forget about leaving you, dear," she said. The other turned from the window. "Thank you, Catherine. I am perfectly certain that it is all going to come out right. Only, you see, if one wants to marry a man who keeps asserting positively that he will never marry, one must have some chance at him when he can take back things without hurting his feelings." "Oh, of course I understand that," said Mrs. Dupre. She was beginning to see that her young friend's announcement as to the spiritual changes which had taken place within herself was being rapidly verified. Each day lately had been filled with food for fresh wonder and consideration, and the ratio of the increase was becoming more and more rapid. A little while later, they went down to dinner, and when dinner was over, Natalie led the way into the library. The captain followed where she led, but the chaperone, true to her promise, fell by the wayside. The library was a good-sized, dark red and brown room, leather-upholstered, oak-paneled, and in all respects quite the usual thing. The day had been rainy, and so a fire blazed on the open hearth. Above the mantel shelf burned 2 waxen altar candles. There was no other light in the room. "Sit down there," said the hostess, pointing to an easy chair that faced both firelight and candle flame. "I want you to sit where I can see you well, so that I can remember just how you looked after you are gone. A man who is off duty, because of being upon the sick list, cannot be called upon to attend inspection," said the captain, laughing. He began to push the chair back into the shadow as he spoke, and looked around for Mrs. Dupre. His face altered when he saw that she had not accompanied them, and Natalie, pouring coffee at a tiny table one side, looked up just in time to observe the change. "You're looking for Catherine, I know," she said, ignoring his act of overt rebellion as to the chair and the firelight. "She isn't coming. We're going to be alone this evening." The captain received this piece of news and his coffee cup in silence. "I'm tired of having Catherine hear everything we say," Natalie continued. "Of course I love her dearly, and that made her perfectly willing to sit somewhere else when I asked her." Mowbray felt his lips tighten. "Please don't look that way." Her tone was earnestly appealing. "That's why I didn't want Catherine. I thought it was she that kept you looking that way." "What way?" said the officer. "As if you were obliged to do something you didn't like, or else obliged not to do something that you'd like to do. I don't know which. You've looked that way so much lately, and I don't like it at all. Can't you drop it for just tonight?" He laughed. Life was really a battle these days. "I'll try," he promised. "Thank you. And now let's talk," said Natalie. "All right. About what?" "About anything, except the army." "Ah, I've bored you with the army, I see." "No," she shook her head. "You haven't bored me, but I have it all by heart, so what's the use?" "Well, what shall we talk of, then? Present company is always barred, you know." Natalie opened her eyes. "What, when there are only 2?" she asked, surprised. He laughed. "Let's talk of the strikes," he suggested. Her face fell. "Oh, the strikes. They're such an old story. No one talks of anything else." Mowbray took out his cigar case and raised his eyebrows in mute interrogation. She nodded assent. He rose and went to the fire while he lit his cigar. When he turned back, she was smiling. "What amuses you?" he inquired. "I just happened to think that if a general railway strike was declared, you might be obliged to remain here indefinitely." "That sounds very attractive, but unfortunately it cannot be. One can always take a mail train." "Do they run anyway?" "Always." "What would happen if they were stopped?" "That would be rebellion against the government." "What would the government do?" "Call out the militia, and, if necessary, the regulars." Natalie looked preternaturally wise. "I understand," she said. Then she smiled. "Even talking about the militia is more interesting without Catherine, don't you think?" she added. "Please, go on." Mowbray took his coffee cup and her coffee cup and set them both carefully down upon the little lacquered stand. His tone became highly formal. "Do you know, Mrs. Arundel, I cannot help wondering what is to be the final result of this present combination of unions. Today, Lefebvre has practically the supreme control of those millions of men who fill the ranks of all useful labor." "He's a wonderful man," said Natalie. "Did I tell you that I cut that picture of him out of the paper and pinned it up in my room? I thought that looking at him might help me. He looks as if when he meant to do anything, he did it, no matter how hard it was. I like that kind of man." "What of the kind of man who, when they decide not to do a thing, refrain from doing it, no matter how hard the resisting proves to be?" asked Mowbray. Natalie looked at him quickly. "I like that kind better yet," she said. "Particularly when they give up and do my way in the end." He went and shook his cigar's ash into the fire. Fancy being the head of all the working men in the country, she went on after a little. Mr. Lefebvre is really more powerful than the head of the government today, isn't he? Hardly that. He has his limits. Well, hasn't the head of the government his limits too? Tonight's paper is almost nothing but his limits. I'm afraid it would be treason for me to admit that, but things are in a bad way, said the captain slowly. I wish that the outlook was somewhat brighter than it is on this, my last evening with you. Yes, it is the last evening, isn't it? I can't realize it. It doesn't seem as if you were really going away tomorrow, does it? He shook his head. And here we sit talking about strikes and limits as if there were nothing else to talk of. I've thought so much about the strikes lately that I'm really very tired of them. And as to limits, if I was a man, I wouldn't recognize any limits. I never do myself, I know. What do you do? I make things come out to suit me. Always? Always. Mowbray rose to shake off the cigar ash again. Do you never find yourself thwarted? Never yet. Enviable woman. But of course, I am very persevering, and then, too, I never mind what things cost. You are again fortunate. Yes, I am fortunate. She paused and looked earnestly at him. Do you really feel obliged to go tomorrow? She asked. Obliged? He raised his eyes and glanced quickly towards her. Then he stopped for a second. I must go, he declared with emphasis. I must go for many reasons. The main ones, as far as the world is concerned, you know as well as I do. I want to ask you something. May I? Certainly. What is it? You feel very much indebted to me, don't you? It is hopeless for me to try to express myself on that point. He looked straight at the fire as he said the words. You wouldn't be vexed with me for any reason, would you? Why should I ever be vexed with you? Suppose I did something that was foolish. He merely smiled. But suppose that you thought it was not merely foolish, but wrong. That is rather unlikely, isn't it? But, she hesitated and looked at him very earnestly. Oh, I want so to tell you everything, she suddenly cried with a quick-drawn breath. And I must tell you nothing. It is all so serious, and I must do it all alone. He turned towards her in wonder. What do you mean? He said. She clasped her hands tightly within one another. I must not say. I must not tell anyone. When I first saw you, I wanted to grow different. I've been changing ever since. I think now I'm almost all changed. I've thought it all out, and I'm going to do it, only it makes me rather nervous, just this last night. Please say again that no matter what I do, you will not be angry with me. Mowbray tried to speak lightly. I don't imagine that you will ever do anything too terrible for me to overlook, he said. Except, perhaps, to grow very different, he added, smiling. She gave him a look of gratitude, and then her eyes filled with quick springing tears. It was an awkward moment, one that took strength to live through in silence. Oh, by the way, he said finally, you'll write me a word occasionally, won't you? I'll send you my address with my first letter of thanks. Yes, I will write. She rose and walked to the window behind him, just long enough to dispose of the moisture in her eyes. There followed another pause, and then she spoke. It's so strange. I sent Catherine away just so that I could say anything that I pleased this evening. And now, instead of wanting to say things, I keep thinking more and more about tomorrow. He bit his lip. It is hard to be the man, and burning to say the things, and then to be gagged by an immutable code of personal honor. But her next remark relieved the stress by giving a most unexpected turn to the conversation. I really am so busy thinking of tomorrow that I almost forget that you are here. He felt completely taken aback. That is flattering. I'm glad that I do not interrupt your thoughts. She smiled a little. When you go away tomorrow, I am going away too, she said. He was conscious of another mental start. Am I fortunate enough to be taking your way? He asked. No. You go west, and I go north. She thought a minute, and then she said, If you knew where I was going tomorrow. He laughed. Is it pleasure or business? Don't laugh. It is business. It is terribly serious business. I shall be interested to know the results, he added. Oh, I'm throwing for such big stakes, she said, so low that he could barely catch the words. They almost frighten me with their bigness. But I'm not afraid, she lifted her head proudly. I'm not afraid, and when it all comes out successfully, then... A curious sort of wistfulness overspread her face and tone as she stopped. Then what? Oh, then, perhaps, so much. She looked at him, and he fancied that her lip trembled. The misery of his position was almost unbearable. What are you going in for? He asked, his formal words in polaric contrast to the strong pull at his self-control. I am only going to tell one man that, she said. I have no right to tell any other. A shock ran over him. He sat back squarely in his chair and took the iron of the knowledge that he was jealous deep into his soul. It was the first time in all their hours and hours of conversation that she had ever brought the hint of a possible rival in among her words. He felt the suggestion sharply, and the folly of it made no easier to bear. I wish tomorrow were over, she said presently. Yes, I do too. But it will be hard after you are gone. It is kind of you to say so. How many days will it take you to get back to the fort? 3. You know there are floods. So I read in the evening paper. She lapsed into silence again, and he tried to convince himself that her allusion to the other man did not really affect him at all. As if a poor and proud devil had any right to care whom any woman talked of. But luck was so tough for some after all. Do let us try to talk a little about ourselves now, she said, turning towards him with a smile. It is the last night, and I keep saying over and over again that Catherine isn't here. I do wish we could talk some about ourselves. It was impossible to think her a coquette. Her sweet, ingenuous face forbade such an unworthy suspicion. Let us talk of you, he suggested. Would that be quite conventional? You know one of the changes that I have made in myself lately has been in getting to be conventional. You've noticed that, haven't you? But you know I never knew you until lately. That's true, but you will never forget me now, will you? He shook his head. In spite of himself, such an ache flamed up in his heart that he felt the echo of its pain in the newly healed wound on his temple. I shall never forget, he said. I am always so happy over your hurting yourself, she said thoughtfully. I don't think that anything ever made me so happy in all my life as seeing that it was you that they were carrying in here. And then when I saw the blood and knew that you would have to stay a long time, well, all I could do was just to give Catherine one look when she was slow about going to have your room arranged. Mowbray stood up and went and leaned against the mantelpiece. You don't feel at all weak when you walk about now, do you? She inquired. Oh, I'm as strong as I ever was in my life. If I had not so much to do, I should wish that you might have had a relapse, she confessed. He said nothing. But if the floods are bad or trouble comes, you may have to return anyway. I do not anticipate floods or trouble. But if there are strikes? You forget the mail trains. But if the mail trains should stop? If everything should stop? He glanced at her quickly. She was looking earnestly up at him, her cheeks a bright, excited scarlet. He caught the end of his mustache between his teeth for a second, then said, "Whatever happens, I shall go on. I am enough like you to follow up my duty. I shall go on even if I have to walk." She continued to watch him. "Has no one ever made you do things that you did not want to do?" she asked gently. "Never since I was a very little chap. But it would be easy to make you do something that you hadn't wanted to do, because you thought that it wasn't right, if it could be proved to you that it was right after all, wouldn't it?" she asked. "I'm afraid that I lost the thread of that," he said. "Won't you repeat it, please?" "It isn't worthwhile," she said. Then she rose. "You'll see what I meant after a while," she said. For a few seconds they looked at one another, and his face hardened as he saw the curious wistfulness overspread hers again. She held out her hand. He took it. "Of course you know," he said hurriedly. "I cannot say anything. There is so much, there is everything, that I want to say, and, her eyelids drooped. "Never mind," she murmured. "Don't worry. Leave it all to me." They were such curious words for a man to hear from a woman's lip, that what followed them was more curious yet. For, lifting her head, she gave him one single look, and in it were mingled so much power, so much purpose, and so much love that he never forgot it again as long as he lived. Then they parted in silence for the night. End of chapter 6.